So what's up, Flip Factor family? This is Michael Green with the Flip Factor podcast, the #1 podcast dedicated to teaching you how to flip 1 to 2 houses each month to fund the life you were meant to live. Today, we're going to talk about how expert house flippers are still finding deals with Coach Black Panther of real estate, Delante Desouza.
Got it. Wakanda forever.
Yes.
Hit the stance.
I love it, dude. He's like, dude, he has the Vibranium. Is that what is it called?
Vibranium.
Vibranium of house flipping.
Ooh.
It's like a tape measure. It's like a little weird tape measure that he uses to get deals, man. Delante, welcome, man. Thanks for joining us again, and excited to have you back.
Thank you for having me back, man. Appreciate it.
Dude, it's cool. We've been doing cool stuff, man. Everybody's been giving us great feedback. Thank everyone for the great reviews. We really appreciate you guys giving us the 5 stars. The awesome reviews means a lot to us, and obviously anybody loves this show, please give us a good review. And thank you for just all the feedback and all the good vibes, man. That's why we do this, is to give back to the community, help. And it just means a lot to us. And, so that's something that I want to just give a big, some gratitude, some thanks to everyone that's listening. And, we really do appreciate it. And you guys are the reason, the listeners are the reasons that we do this. And we kind of keep putting this show on for everyone else. So keep it up. Thank you. And we'll keep giving back in a big way and helping out. And that's just our thing, right? It's what we love to do. Coach Delante loves helping out. Black Panthers into the Vibranium. I can't even say it.
Vibranium.
Vibranium. All right.
Yeah, there you go.
Since it's not a real thing, I feel like that I don't know how to say it. It is fake. I'm sorry for any Marvel fans that are probably getting really angry at me right now. So sorry for blasphemizing your awesome Endgame. By the way, Endgame was amazing, right? Did you see it?
Oh, it was so good. Yeah.
I know. I don't think anyone didn't like it. I memean, it was pretty amazing. And I'm not that big of a fan of comic books, but man, Endgame was a great movie. Their whole setup to Endgame was about as good as it got. Like the movie before it, where they just like killed everyone off and they go to this next thing and left like a cliffhanger with a movie. I was like, no one's ever done that. That's pretty amazing. Like, great job. People just talking about it, going crazy about it forever. So Marvel, man, good thumbs up to you, man. You're killing it. Like, great job. All right, well, cool. Listen, we got 2 announcements, really like 1 announcement. We'll keep it super short and let's just jump straight into what matters. And so if you guys are interested in learning a little bit more for free, we do have a free Facebook group. It's called the Real Estate Flip Factor 10X Facebook group. You can join that community. It's completely free. It's a bunch of like-minded people who want to either get into flipping houses or are already flipping houses. And we share a bunch of videos. I've been doing posts on there, lives every day, giving back some tips, helping people out, answering questions completely for free. There's not many places where you can go get this level of like just love from so many awesome people, right? It's just a great group of people. We have very strict rules in this group. We keep it small, it's private, it's not open to everyone. If you're not cool, and what I mean not cool, I mean if you're a negative person or you're bad mouthing people, you're trolling, we just kick you out. There's like a 0 tolerance. So that's how we make the group so awesome. People are like, why is the group so awesome? Everybody's so amazing in this group. Well, Mike Green and Delante, we've made a choice that if people are not cool and they're kind of being mean or they're jerks or they're just not really bringing value to the group in a way of being a good person and a positive person, you're not allowed in the group. It's that simple. Right? I mean, how hard is that? Now, Delante and I put a lot of work into picking those people out. And maybe at some level, Delante likes feeling like God. I'm not going to put you out there, Delante, but I think it's a little bit of God. He thinks he's God. He likes being able to like drop the hammer. He's like a judge. He's like the executioner. You say something dumb, Delante's probably going to be like, delete, and you're out. Now, the good news is we don't have to delete many people because most people are at the core of what they're doing are just awesome people. And we really love having you in the group. So jump in and join. And if you guys want to learn and coach, like me and Delante do coach and we help people. So if you want to learn how to do 1 to 2 houses a month, fund the life that you want to live, that's our belief. And that's what we do. We do this and we use it to just, the money we make from house flipping to do cool, exciting things and, and have that financial freedom that most of us is dreaming of. It's the reason we got into the business. So if you really want to do that, you want someone to handhold you and help you, reach out to us on Facebook, on one of our groups or my personal page, wherever you can find me. So you can just look up the Flip Factor or the Flip Factor podcast on Instagram. Send me your message and we'll talk and have a conversation about it. So Delante, are you ready to jump in?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
All right, let's jump it in. So Delante, topic.
All right, so the topic that we're going to be talking about is how expert house flippers are still finding deals. And Mike, I just want to go over a little bit of background on why we came about this topic. So as you guys may or may not know on the podcast, we've traveled to a bunch of different groups and stuff. We've been part of a bunch of different communities with house flippers and stuff. And we really got to see and meet other house flippers who are in the 8-figure range that running $1 million businesses. And what we've learned is like a lot of people do tons of different things in their businesses. We'll get into that content in the actual podcast, but Mike, what was your experience, meeting other house flippers who are pretty much crushing it in the game at that 8-figure $1 million level?
Yeah, it's really eye-opening because what I've found is, there's a saying that you're the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And if you are spending your time in like meetups with a bunch of newbies or people who haven't cracked the code, it's super easy to start believing that there's not actually any deals out there. Right? That there's no deals on the MLS, that letters aren't working anymore. Bandit signs suck. They're not any good anymore. Well, it's really easy to start believing that. I've had many times in my career where I thought things weren't working anymore because I looked at a very small sample size of a month or two that didn't work very well. And I just decided to say, well, okay, letters don't work. And really what we do differently, and what I would say all really high level flippers do differently, is instead of saying something doesn't work, they start asking the question of what would it take to make it work again? Like, why is it not working? You start becoming question-based instead of statement-based, right? When you make statements and you make a statement like the MLS doesn't work anymore, well, guess what? You'll go find reasons to support what that statement you made. And if you look for those reasons, you will find them. That is unfortunate truth. Like, if I've actually had a time where I quit doing the MLS for almost a year, and then I met someone who was crushing it in a really competitive market of Austin, Texas, at the same time when I had quit in Baltimore, Maryland, which is nowhere near as competitive, and I couldn't find deals, he was finding 10 deals a month on the MLS. And that was enough to inspire me to say, you know what, my MLS system's not like dead. It's just that what I was using was broke. And this was about 3 years ago. And it was one of the first times that I realized that the ways that the gurus had taught me over the years, the old school tactics of house flipping, just don't really work anymore. Right now, it's all about, in this competitive market, it's all about efficiencies, systems, processes that work, that are really dialed in and tuned to where they need to be, because any inefficiency creates a lack of competitive edge, right? And everything we do, we have to create competitive edge. So the question you asked was, what's working right now? Well, I'm going to give you a really simple answer. Everything is working. Like, everything that's always worked is working. But the key to it is, and this is the more complex version of the answer, is that anything you decide to do, you're going to have to become good at it. You're going to have to create a new way of doing things. What I did was I took the old foundational way of doing things that wasn't working very well. And I understood that that old foundational way that like all the big gurus are teaching, all the different coaches out there on Facebook are teaching still, like, it's not bad, right? You totally could flip houses with it. But what I realized was the downfall of it was that you have to work really hard to make it work because of the market we're in. So what I started to work on over the last couple of years is find a way to take that old system and really optimize it and make it better so that you could start to get a lot more deals and start to create this competitive edge that many others don't have. And that starts to put you in your own category where you don't worry about, is there deals on the MLS anymore? I found 2 in the last 2 weeks, and I found a couple from wholesalers. I got one from my marketing. So the reality is, when people are like, Mike, what's working best for you? Well, with good systems, everything works. Now, some of it requires different types of work. So like if we're going to do letters, that requires more money than work, right? The work might be going to see appointments, but it's more money intensive. If we're going to do driving for dollars, it requires more labor versus money. But if you don't have a small budget, driving for dollars works really well, by the way. MLS, if you have a small budget, works really well. If you're looking to buy renovations, buying from wholesalers works really well. Am I going to tell you that I'm getting like every deal comes from a wholesaler is good? No, most are not good, but I have a really effective process for going through 50 wholesale deals in a matter of minutes and picking out the winners, the ones I should put my time into. And by making that one shift, I'm able to start getting deals in a place that most people say doesn't work anymore. It's too competitive.
Right. So, Mike, what you're really talking about, kind of want to bring this to light for everyone listening. You're really referring to a mindset shift that you experienced. Once you saw what was possible for you with the MLS, you adapted that mindset shift of, how can I make this work? And you took it to a whole new level where you're innovating, you're constantly evolving your processes so that you're seeing, the killer results that you're seeing.
Yeah, you nailed it, man. That's exactly right. And I think 80% of this business is mindset. Every time I work with a student or a friend asks me for advice, or I meet someone out and about and they're like, oh, you flip houses, man. Like, I do too. And hey, how do you deal with this problem? Well, I always have an answer for them. But to be honest, most of the time it's based in mindset. It's based in our belief system. So being around awesome people, this is what we bring to our community, in the 10X community, the coaching program. It's all about being around other people that are awesome, that are going to keep your head clear, but also give you the most powerful and effective ways to do things. And when I realized that, I stopped being afraid to spend money on coaching, and I started realizing that I have to spend money on coaching every year. I've been doing this 10 years. I've done over 1,100 flips, and I still have a coach that I work with. I have two, by the way. So to be fair, I mean, I have two coaches, and one I've been working with for 3.5 years, and he's an E-Myth coach, a very high level E-Myth coach. Cost me quite a bit of money every month to have him on board, and I've been working with him for 3.5 years. That's the investment I've made into going from the old way of flipping, which sucked and took a lot of work and didn't create any kind of freedom. It just was really like having a job. I mean, I feel like I worked 90 hours a week before. Now I work 15 hours a week because I've made that commitment. It's a mindset change to that I'm not going to be like everyone's overwhelmed figuring out just how to do the basic version of it. Well, why don't you, if you're going to learn it, why don't you learn the best version of it, the best practice, right? Because now when you go and put this effort in, that effort will yield more results for you. One of the hardest things to do is to learn something in a simple way that doesn't work, because you could like work that to death and never get a result. But if you learn a slightly more complex way that is very effective and works really well, it actually in a very odd way becomes more simple. Because see, simple is all about the effort you put in versus the results you get, right? And this is what we always want to focus on. And when you're new or you've been doing it a long time, this is how we help people scale their business up. If they're doing 10, 20 houses a year, we work with people like that too. Because at the end of the day, like you got to get your business better, right? I mean, there's never been a time my coach hasn't brought tons of value to me. That's why I pay him every month. And I'm not trying to sell coaching. This is about knowing that you need someone. That person could be your partner, it could be your spouse, it could be a friend, trusted advisor, anyone. But it's hard to do on your own. And if you are doing it, this is that working in your business versus working on your business, right? We talk about that a lot, and that's a big deal if you really want to have an amazing business. And if you're new, why this is important to you is you have to learn the best practices also. So you go out there, and I think it's even harder if you haven't done a deal and you're using outdated practices, because you just don't know how to make deals happen. I've seen people use outdated practices and run a really decent flipping business because they've learned how to do it despite the fact that their practices are kind of out of date and inefficient. But do they run the business they really want? The answer is usually no. They, in their heart, always, when I talk with them or they bring me on to help them improve their business, in their heart, they always know that, yes, I'm making 300 or 400K a year, but I know I'm capable of doubling and tripling that. And I just haven't been able to figure out why I can't do it. The answer is they haven't really honed in these systems to a high level way, the best practice, the most effective way of doing things. So what works? How are you still finding deals? Okay, well, you got to put a great process together, right? You got to have the right process.
Yeah. And with that being said, I'm sure this next question will also be valuable. What is the biggest strategy change that you've seen experts use in today's market to crush it as far as doing deals?
Doing deals. So, I mean, let's talk a little bit about the most common ways that people are getting deals. That's probably a good thing too, right? And then I'll jump into that question. But the most common ways that people are getting deals, and anyone that's to tell me any of these ways don't work, I'll fight you on it, because I used to think the same thing, but I'm 100% conclusive. I use every one of these ways to make money. And the ways that are most common that people are making money is direct mail. That's going to be the number one. Well, everyone says direct mail is out of date. It's not working anymore. Like, who uses mail anymore? Well, guess who uses mail? Our customer avatar. Our customer avatar are old people, right? Old people have equity in their homes. They also have outdated homes that need repairs. And honestly, they want to just sell it and they don't want to fix it up. And they're okay with selling it at a cheaper price because they probably bought it for 10K 30 years ago. So when you offer them 100, that in perspective feels like a lot of money, versus someone who's 29 and bought the house a year ago and paid 200K. Well, they're not likely going to sell it for 100K. So you have to make sure you're picking the right customer avatar. And guess what? Older people still read their mail. I don't read my mail, so I guess that makes me really young and cool. I know Delante, I mean, he's probably just looking to see if there's a check or something in the mail, but he's not reading a postcard from anyone. But older people do still actually go through the mail. And I know because they send me a lot of stuff back saying, hey, why are you sending me mail? Stop sending this to me. And I think, well, I just throw my mail away if I don't like it. They actually read it. It's like mail works. I can tell you that every really 8-figure flipper, 7-figure flipper that I know has a foundation of direct mail that is driving their business. So direct mail can go to probates, absentee owners. I mean, they all work. Just be great at whatever you're going to do, right? It's really more about the big shift in making all this work is about being able to go out and convert, right? Be able to take a seller from where they are to where you need them to be in order to make a deal. So that's going to be the big thing that makes any of this marketing prospecting work. So first you have to have a good place. Now I would advise anyone. So my next piece of advice, so let me just walk through every one of them because I feel like I'm jumping off track. It's direct mail, PPC works, Facebook works, a little more tricky. I'm trying to figure out Facebook, so I'm always upfront and honest. I'm not figured it out yet. I got someone helping me, and we're a couple months in. It hasn't really worked yet, but I'm assuming it will work. I'm gonna, I came in for the long haul, and I want to make sure it's working. Cold calling's crushing right now, so it's really good. Cold calling's better than ever these days because so few people are willing to do it, and when it's a competitive market, the people willing to do things that others aren't tend to have a really good competitive edge. Now, cold calling, like anything, you should be good at it if it's going to work. You should have a system for how you do it, right? You can't just randomly get on the phone and talk. There is a process that you have to follow. Cold calling, MLS is working great. We did 17 deals last year. We just picked up 2 in the last 2 weeks off the MLS. I love the MLS. It works really well. We're in a really highly competitive market of DC, Virginia, Maryland, the DMV area, and a lot of people will tell you in this area that MLS does not work. It is a common thing I hear all the time. I heard it a couple years ago. I heard it 6 years ago. I mean, I always hear it. But I will tell you that if you're using some new school tactics that we've created and you're doing something at a very high level, there is a way to squeeze out the few little deals on the MLS, which is 17 a year for me. For you, it might just be your first deal or maybe getting 3 or 4 deals a year from it. It's a free source. It's awesome. I love that. Now, wholesalers, I've also gotten 2 deals recently from wholesalers. So I'm in love with wholesalers. I always get 5 to 10 deals a year from wholesalers, but there is a very specific way of working with them. And then driving for dollars. Driving for dollars we did an episode on it, and you guys can refer back to that episode if you want to know more about it. But driving for dollars has had a big resurgence recently because, again, driving for dollars is that thing that people aren't willing to do. So you don't have as much competition with it. And even if you hear of a lot of people doing it, what I will promise you is a lot of people might do it, but they don't follow through with it. They don't do it any long period of time. They get all pumped up and they go out for a day. Maybe they send 20, 30 letters, but then they don't do it next week. The person who wins at driving for dollars has a routine. Right? They get out and they do it once a week, 3 times a week, whatever it is, but they do it consistently for a 4 to 8 month period until it works, because it does work. And it is a very affordable way of doing things because you're doing something that others aren't willing to stick with. And anytime you do that, you end up getting some great stuff. So what is the secret, the strategy that's really helping right now? Pick something. Don't try to do all these. If you're new and you're only doing 5, 10 deals a year, any of these resources that I just told you about to find deals can produce you anywhere from 10 to 20 deals a year if you only did one of them. And you easily can find a couple deals a year. And if they're not finding you that, then you're not doing it correctly. And I'm sorry, I hope I don't offend anybody by saying that, but it's just the truth. I've personally been able to make all these work. And as I've studied people, like Delante said, we've been very fortunate to be around other awesome people doing this. And they're all crushing whatever they decide they want to do, they crush. So when you're deciding which of these to do, a lot of times it has more to do with your personality, your time, how much time you have, how much money you have, right? Your resources, all that goes more into deciding which of these to do than deciding which one of them's best, right? It's really more about what do you want to do? That's kind of my cool thing. So which form of marketing is best? Like, it's the one you pick and the one you decide to master. Simple question, right? The one that's best is the one you decide is best and you're going to make work. All the ones I just mentioned to you work. I would be weary of any kind of super ninja special tactic that you see on Facebook. Dude, trust me, those things are no better. I mean, every day I almost fall into one of those because I'm a human too. And even though in the back of my head, I'm like, no, this totally doesn't work, man. I am not like Sean Terry. I'm not listening to you again, man. And I'm like, I know it doesn't work, dude. And I do still buy it a lot of times because then in the other side, I'm like, well, what if it does work? What if this one does work? And I don't know. So don't find anything gimmicky, anything that sounds too good to be true. It's probably too good to be true. And every really successful flipper is doing stuff that you wouldn't think is all that original or unique. But what was very original about what they're doing is they're doing it at a high level. They're not just doing it and then giving up on it. They're really putting a great process together to really crush it. And that's the secret to like how we make this stuff work.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned a great point with picking something and then crushing it. Like, another thing, once you find out or once you figure out what's best for you, the work doesn't stop there. You always talk about how you went from converting 1 in 25 to 1 in 10. And that's part of the process too. It's a thing of like, leads are getting more expensive. We've seen that. How can we do more with the leads we already have? That's the question that, you should be asking yourself when you're trying to figure out how the expert flippers are still finding deals. It's because they're taking the leads that they get and they're taking them to a whole new level of follow-up and rapport building and things like that. So you work these leads harder and harder.
Yeah. And you have more time to do so since you have less leads. So yes, is there a problem of leads being more expensive? Of course there is. When things get competitive, lead prices go up and leads get harder to obtain. They cost more to obtain. What you do end up getting back in return is the time you would have spent on all the additional leads you had in the past. You just now have to reinvest that time into a smarter way of doing things. Like Delante said, building rapport and creating a really high level competitive edge that very few of your competitors have. And when you create that, then you will start winning deals. I mean, in this last year, we're 1 in 10, and I have a feeling that I'm actually going to even make that number better. So I'm on my journey. I'll let you guys know once we find out. If it's worse, I'm okay with it. I'm just an analytical guy, right? If it comes in at 1 in 20, I can make a living at 1 in 20. It's a little harder with leads costing what they are today, but at 1 in 10, I'm crushing it, and I'm more than happy. All my marketing campaigns, I spend $1, I get $10 back. A lot of other gurus out there, like spend $1, get $4 back. I'm not saying that doesn't work. You can make a living spending $1 and getting 4 back, but wouldn't you prefer to spend $1 and get 10 back? What I get from spending $1 and getting 10 back is I get a business that can sustain and get through any kind of downturns in the market, which we know we're going to have in the future. And when we have that downturn, it's the people who are getting 1 in 10 back and have really optimized their systems to have great results that are going to survive. And the people getting 1 and 2 back, 1 and 4 back are going to be more vulnerable to that downturn and not surviving. So it's cash that's going to keep you through any kind of downturn, and it's also going to be optimization. So even if you're new, these are things you should consider, because as a newbie, like again, if you follow the best practices, you'll get to that result you want. And what is the result that a new person wants? I know for me, all I wanted was to do my first deal. I just wanted to get in, have the opportunity to do my first deal and prove to myself that I could. So Delante, you have an interesting story. I threatened on the last podcast that I might consider firing him from this because it was a creeper story, but he gave me a better one this time. So he's got the job for a little longer. I'm going to let him jump in, just give the quick overview, and then we'll go over some details, but it's pretty interesting. Actually, I really thought it was cool.
So basically, here's what I saw today. People are speculating that Russia recently restarted a 1980s military program that was meant to train sea mammals as operatives for its armed forces. Now, they're saying this because a white whale that was found harassing Norwegian boats near a fishing village is suspected of being a Russian-trained operative, according to the marine researchers in that area. So basically, just to layman's terms, they're saying the Russian Navy is training white whales and other sea mammals to be like spies.
Yeah, well, white people are the devil. White whales are the devil. So apparently, I mean, I don't even know, but dude, that story was so funny. And listen, this is like legitimate, right? This is not some crap that came off like TMZ, or this was like a real story, right?
Yeah, no, this is like a real legit story.
Okay, it doesn't sound like it. I have to be honest. It sounds so over the top.
Yeah, it sounds clickbaity, but they reported, the Guardian's talking about it. Basically, the program was performed by the Merrimack Sea Biology Research Institute on behalf of the Navy, the Russian Navy. And basically what they're doing is they're trying to research and see whether beluga whales can be used as guards for naval bases in the Arctic regions and other stuff that I'm sure, wasn't released, but.
I don't know why I can imagine like a Russian guy sitting in a room cold with the big fur hat on, like, we're going to train the whales to spy on the Americans. Let's call Donald Trump and see what he thinks. Yeah. Help us. Is Donald Trump involved in this at any level?
Nah, they didn't drop his name, so I don't know, but could be. I don't know.
That's the next thing, right? They'll keep that for election. Donald Trump was pulling the whales in. It's so funny. All right, I don't even have any comments on this one, and I could not pull this into house flipping other than maybe we could train whales to go find houses for us.
There you go.
If a whale can spy on someone, then you can train someone for $10 an hour to go find you deals.
Yeah, if a whale can do it, a person should be able to.
Yes. See, the issue with a whale is they're more trainable. See, as humans, I think we've gotten to where we don't actually want to do anything, and we find a lot of excuses and a lot of stuff. We get in our own heads, and we find all these reasons not to do stuff. And the whale is just like, all right, cool. Yeah, just give me a fish. I'll do it.
Whales are like, whatever. It's all good.
It's all good, man. Yeah. You need me, what do you want me to look at? Americans? Like, okay, cool. Yeah, I can handle that. I'll let you know like what they're doing.
There you
Yeah,
go.
I don't. Do they have like cameras attached to them, or like how's this working?
I'm
And how do
sure
they
they do.
communicate with the whales if the whales are like spying?
I don't know. I think they got like they got like harnesses that they're putting on the whales, so like they can monitor what the whales are doing. And apparently they're training them to like bump into fishing boats to like knock any weapons and stuff off.
What?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like they're training these. Well, I mean, yeah, it's the Russian Navy, so like of course the whales are gonna be like legit. I didn't know they were gonna be this legit.
Okay, I don't get where you went with that one. Like, what is the Russian Navy known for being awesome? Or
Okay, when you hear Russian Navy, that I feel like that sounds pretty badass. They're training whales like they know what they're doing. Like these whales are, give them a couple years, and these whales are probably going to be like knocking over like U.S. Navy ships. That's all I'm saying.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're gonna have to check back in on that in a couple years and see how that one's going. Yeah, I don't know. Somebody's gonna end up killing whales, is what I'm thinking. Like, there's going to be some whale thing happening. PETA and Russians and Donald Trump, some circle web of drama. This is why I don't watch the news and I make Delante report the news for us, because I try not to watch the news, because I'll never flip another house if you start getting me into stories about whales and all the other crazy things that are in the news. It's just every day, isn't it? There's something crazy dramatic every day to distract the crap out of you.
Yeah.
So turn that off and go look on the MLS for some deals. I promise you, you only have to stop watching Vampire Diaries a few times and put that energy into looking for a deal, and you will start finding deals. And Vampire Diaries will be there. It's right on Netflix, so it won't go anywhere. It'll wait for you until you got enough money to watch it. So that's my thing. Anytime I look at anything in life and I'm like, oh, if I only had more time, I could do this. I look back and I reflect and realize that I actually watched 8 seasons of Vampire Diaries over like a 6-month period. And I probably could have built a whole new business in the time that it took to watch 8 seasons of Vampire Diaries. So I don't have any excuses in this world to say that I don't have the time. That's my belief, at least. And as long as I'm still watching stupid shows like Vampire Diaries, then I have no excuse. I can never use the time excuse. You'll never hear me say I don't have the time. Now I just choose to use my time to watch Vampire Diaries sometimes. So it's okay. Got to have some fun, right?
Yeah, and now people are all over Game of Thrones. Like, okay, Game of Thrones, I get it. If you're watching Game of Thrones, I understand. Like, don't be hard on yourself. It's Game of Thrones, right? But if you're like, oh, well, I'm just gonna sit up on the couch and just wait for deals to fall in my lap, I don't know why I'm not making money.
I feel like that was a really subtle, judgy way of saying I should not have spent like 700 hours watching Vampire Diaries.
Oh, was oh.
All right, I'm gonna let you off the hook, man. I'm letting you off the hook on that one. I know where you're going to. Game of Thrones. We're gonna check that out. Me and Delante strategically. Delante got me a HBO card for Christmas, and we're strategically waiting to use it once we can watch all the episodes in a week or two, instead of like waiting 8 weeks or whatever it is to watch them all. Plus, I'm not that patient. I kind of like binge watching now. I've gotten used to Netflix. I like the way that rolls, right? I don't like enjoying like waiting a week. By next week, like a lot happens in my life, and I totally can't remember what happened the week before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if that's true for you, but I like binge watching. I think a lot of people do. That's why Netflix is crushing it.
Yeah, I like binge watching too, because I don't know. I feel like once you get in one episode, you just got to have more. And it's more right there. The cake is right there for you, so you can have it and you can eat it until like you hit the end of the season. Then you're really sad. But
yeah, and then there's depression.
Yeah,
it's over. You have no more show to watch
for a year.
Right, well, when you're depressed because your show's over and there's no more Game of Thrones and you have nothing to do, you're probably going to find that you need a hobby. That hobby should be house flipping, because you can make a lot of money and do some awesome stuff. So if you're new and you're thinking about getting in, just stop watching your shows, put that energy into learning and educating yourself, and you'll start to make it. Keep listening to this podcast, keep sharing, jump on the 10X group. So anyone who wants to coach and wants to learn and is done with being depressed after Netflix runs out of shows, and you want to learn how to flip 1 to 2 houses a month, hit up me on Facebook and say, hey, Mike, I'd love to talk to you about coaching. Just send me a private message, put it on as a post. I don't care. Any way you can communicate with me is fine. My number's out there. My information is very readily available and easy to get to. So just find me on the Flip Factor on Facebook or the Flip Factor podcast on Instagram, and we'll talk. So thanks again, Flip Factor family, for joining us. We had a fun conversation today. I don't even remember what we were talking about. We got so into whales and Netflix, but hey, sometimes it's okay to go on a tangent, have some fun. My work is done and yours has just begun. This is Michael Green. Have a great day. Have a great week and keep crushing it, everyone.